Waiting as an act of faith. We live in a culture that resounds with the message, don't just stand there, do something. A message of constant movement. Ours is a harried culture, emphasizing communication, information, and action over reflection, constant movement over stillness. We experience a daily barrage of words and expectations, piles of mail, messages on our computer and on our phone, advertisers, family, friends, and employers all telling us to be or to do something, sharing their expectations of us as we scramble to write down the never-ending list of what we need to do. No one likes to wait, but we wait in traffic, in carpool lines, in holding patterns, in grocery stores, for the foursome ahead of us on the green, for the doctor, for a spouse, for a baby, for retirement, and for sermons to end. Waiting is not just something we have to do while we get what we want. Waiting does not mean doing nothing. It is not fatalistic resignation. It is not a way to evade unpleasant reality. Furthermore, I assure you that I am not advocating procrastination. Times and situations exist in our lives, in our church, and in our world community when waiting just won't do. This message is about patience, the place of stillness and silence in a spiritual life, in a life that strives constantly to align actions with deeply held values. Much of our lives is spent waiting in some varied form or another for some good thing to happen. A great love, marriage, a birth of a child, or transitioning from studying in preparation to launching a career. A time of planning and patience. Those who wait are those who work because they know their work is not in vain. The farmer can wait all summer for his harvest because he's done his work of sowing the seed and watering the plants. In the Universalist story of Thomas Potter and John Murray, Potter waited 10 years after building a meeting house for the express purpose of housing a preacher of the Universalist gospel before Thomas Potter ended up on the shores of Lenoka Harbor, New Jersey. This kind of patience requires wisdom. It asks us to discern which situations in our life and in the world might benefit from patience, which might benefit from action, and which might require an artful combination of the two. When we actively choose to wait, surrendering to the reality that some things take more time than we'd like, we cannot always know how it will turn out. But in those moments, when we choose stillness and patience over frustration, anger, and impatience, there is no doubt in my mind that we are engaging in a countercultural act, which I believe is also a spiritual act. I'm not suggesting that you either lean one way or the other, but my hope is that an expanding consciousness will help cultivate the practice of patience, stillness, and waiting. So on those occasions when you feel rushed to fix or change something, you just might consider waiting as an option. And that way, the Christian refrain is, let go and let God. You may find yourself overwhelmed by the chatter within, or over time you might hear that still small voice within of spirit coming through in a whisper. Author Parker Palmer describes this as soul coming through and describes it as something like a wild animal. He continues saying, the soul is shy and easily frightened and can only be heard when we cease stomping around the woods with our flashlights and instead sit quietly at the base of a tree, waiting for it to appear. The waiting, he tells us, can be awfully uncomfortable because our muscles start to ache, we get cold and tired of being still. We begin to think that if we just move to the next tree, then the thing we hope for will appear. But as the title of the sermon suggests, I agree with the French philosopher Max Picard, who noted that silence is the central place of faith. It is in silence often that we are most uncomfortable. And it is in silence that faith, trust, and our sometimes shy and whispering inner voice might emerge. It is in silence that we might wait with hopeful expectancy. And it is in silence, in those times of waiting, that many of us find ourselves face to face with fear. For in those moments, we may be left only with silence and perhaps a terrifying emptiness. The emptiness that comes with waiting is a natural, inextricable part of any spiritual life, whether it feels excruciatingly uncomfortable or calming and clarifying. The stories of feeling empty and confused, followed by periods of clarity and trust, are as old as time. Within the scriptures, we have the Israelites wandering 40 years in the desert. We have Jonah spending 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of a whale, and Job's incredible loss and pain. However, in a more modern context, there is Henry David Thoreau's day of wandering and reflecting in the woods of Walden Pond. These periods of emptiness that call for patience and stillness come to almost all of us in different ways and in different degrees. In my case, it was 2 years of wandering around the island of Maui, Hawaii, with a crisis of faith, ultimately leading to a call to serve in ministry. There's a place where Jews hid during the Holocaust deep in the caves of Cologne, Germany. The following words were found etched into the wall, and I quote, "I believe in the sun even though it is late in rising. I believe in love though it is absent. I believe in God though he is silent." Philosopher Martin Buber uses the image of an eclipse when attempting to understand the different phases of our faith journey. When a solar eclipse occurs, we find ourselves bathed in unusual daytime darkness. It appears from our vantage point here on Earth that the sun has gone out. And without the aid of science, we would have no idea how long this darkness would last, or if it would ever go away. Buber offers this metaphor for our lifelong journey of faith, saying, and I quote, "An eclipse of the sun is something that occurs between the sun and our eyes." He explains, not in the sun itself. In times of silence and of doubt, when we experience the darkness of the eclipse, our faith can remain, shifting and changing as we continue to learn and experience the full range of life. As Unitarian Universalists, doubt, change, and an ongoing growth play a central role in our spiritual lives. Ours is a living tradition, and there is more to a lifelong journey of faith than a destination or a particular set of beliefs. That, I believe, is the beauty of Unitarian Universalism. It is a gift to not be rooted in place. As we sing in Spirit of Life, roots hold me close, wings set me free. We're expected to change over time. Our faith tradition is at ease with the notion that as our lives unfold, as we read, grow, learn, and experience different things, our beliefs will change as well. We're people who seek out experiences that result in growth. In this way, our life's work lies in the never-ending journey of aligning our actions with our deepest values. I imagine we won't have to search too far for those occasions that call for stillness, for waiting, for the opportunity to practice patience. There are daily moments, large and small, when waiting is the best option. Moments when we breathe deeply before responding in conversation. When we consider allowing ourselves to grow in experience and wisdom before taking on a particular task. When we commit to an ongoing spiritual practice. When we engage in the sometimes slow process of forgiveness in relationship. These moments of patience allow us to pause, think clearly, be gentle with ourselves, and perhaps try again. Because we live in a culture that devalues and admonishes waiting, we need to reclaim the time as well as the art for ourselves and for our children. However, given the culture we live in, such welcoming of emptiness and patience will be no easy task, and it may not come naturally. In this world of advanced technology, telecommunications, and immediate gratification, waiting is often viewed as a sign of failure and an obstacle to our liberties. I want what I want, and I want it now. However, I invite you to expand your imagination a bit, to consider how you might welcome stillness into your life and into your faith. How might you search for and welcome emptiness? Could you turn the radio off in your car? Sit quietly for 5 minutes before you pick up the phone or turn on the TV? Take the risk of acknowledging that just for now, you may not know exactly what you believe. How might you practice stillness? Practice patience with yourself and with others. How might you consider quiet as an option in more situations? Preparing yourself for those times when the natural rhythm of your spiritual life calls for waiting that might take much, much longer. As we ease into this practice of patience and waiting, may we grow in trust that just as light and darkness, speech and silence define each other, so do patience and action define one another as well. May we grow in the wisdom of patience, trusting in times of darkness amid the ebb and flow of our lives. Waiting is an essential part of life. There is not a great moment in our lives that has not been made greater in anticipation in the waiting. To wait is not a bad consequence. There's a purpose to our waiting. It's not an absence or delay of experience, but a deliberate action. Waiting is also an integral part of human growth and development. Waiting involves the passage of time during which there can be healing, growth, introspection, and resolution. Faithful waiting, attending, involves much more than passively throwing your hands up in the air until blessings are raised down into your palms. Faithful waiting involves actively seeking contentment, even amid less than optimal circumstances. I encourage you to keep doing the next right thing, taking the steps you know to take without getting frustrated because you aren't yet there where you want to be. Act on the belief that in the flow of the universe there is a plan for your life, and it will come to fruition. Commit to being ready for that completion to occur, even if you can't see it coming. There's a contemporary saying, stay ready so you don't have to get ready. Spiritual transformation doesn't take place when we get what we want. It takes place while we're waiting. It is forged in us while we're waiting, hoping, and trusting, even though we have yet to receive what we long for. Spiritual transformation happens in the waiting room. From my heart to yours, may it be so.